Greetings, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Tachyon Transmissions. I'm, of course, your host, Byron Lafayette, and I'm joined by my co-host, Jordan Morris. And we are continuing our journey through Star Trek Strange New Worlds Season 3. And this episode, we are going to be discussing episode 6, which is the Salot Who Ate Its Tail. Very interesting title. I think this one will be an interesting topic to discuss because the episode itself was interesting. But before we jump into that, first, I would like to say, if you are enjoying this podcast, please like and subscribe and share with your friends. And Jordan, would you like to introduce our B plot for this episode?
I would be happy to. So, while perusing the internet and YouTube, as most of us are wont to do, I came across a very interesting tidbit from Trek Culture. Great site, great YouTube channel, a lot of fun content. They love Trek as much as we do. Apparently, recently, Malcolm McDowell was interviewed about his career and, various projects from A Clockwork Orange to whatever his latest upcoming project is. And Star Trek Generations came up, and he was asked, with so many people returning to these classic franchises, what are your thoughts on this? He goes, oh, sure, I'd be down to come back. And I'm like, ooh, I think all the people at Trek Culture, I think, were happily and pleasantly surprised as well. And it just was, completely, out of left field. I don't think anyone was expecting that, but it seems like there's been a lot of unexpected Trek news lately. I think Byron would agree with me on that one.
There absolutely has been a lot of tidbits of things coming out, and some of it feels natural, some of it feels like there might be some whispers and maybe hints of stuff from Paramount coming out as well, to kind of maybe gauge reactions, but there's been a lot.
Oh, yeah. Now, what was interesting was the speculation about how he would return. So, obviously he dies in Star Trek Generations. Sorry, spoiler alert for a 30-year-old movie. I apologize. But, their thought, and the more I think about it, the more I like this. Okay, so in Generations, obviously Picard gets sucked into the Nexus and meets Kirk. They go back, they get out of the Nexus, they set it up so Soran doesn't destroy Viridian 3, and so on. However, when Picard is sucked into the Nexus, so is a version of Soran. That Soran is sucked to the Nexus. Now, that Soran has to be in the Nexus. Yes, they came out and prevented him from being in the Nexus, but he's still that, whether you call it an offshoot timeline, whatever, however you want to paraphrase that. That version of him is still in the Nexus. And even if you want to retcon that out, him being an El-Orian like Guinan, there would be at least an echo of him in the Nexus. So Data's exact words, I believe, in stellar cartography are every 39.1 years, the Nexus travels through the Milky Way galaxy. That was 2371. Depending if we get a Star Trek Legacy, and it jumps forward a few years from 2402 when the Enterprise G launches, could the Nexus come through and they bring Soran back that way? What are your thoughts, Byron?
I think it's incredibly interesting because, Soran was always a character I liked in Generations. I know we've talked before about how many problems there are with that movie, but I've always thought that Malcolm McDowell as that character was never a problem. He was a great villain, a great actor. The script at times didn't give him a massive amount to do, always. But overall, I liked his character and I liked the actor. So I would be completely down for him to return to Star Trek. I think it would be very interesting, especially because his character is obviously famous for, killing Captain Kirk. And so kind of having this maybe epilogue, revisiting of this character, I think would be interesting and would also give Kirk's death a little bit more weight, I think, of, not having this just be, the air quotes monster of the week that killed him, that we actually maybe get kind of a follow-up with it. the idea of his echo being in the Nexus, I think, is a great way to bring him back. Because the Nexus is in and of itself a absolutely fascinating concept in Star Trek. I was always very interested in it in Generations, and I always wondered what it would be like if it came back. And so, yeah, like having that come back, maybe seeing, either, Picard, going back to the Nexus and encountering that echo of him, or even as we talked about with Legacy, maybe this is something with, Seven of Nine and some of the other characters maybe encounter the Nexus and then encounter him inside of it. Like I'm down for honestly pretty much anything. And I just think it would be a very interesting story to revisit, and especially having his echo, because I think it would work to maybe flesh out his character a little bit more and maybe add some more nuances and development to him.
Oh, for sure. Like, I mean, you could, whether you did the Echo or maybe the version of him that did get sucked into the Nexus, maybe he's come to the point, like, he doesn't even have to necessarily be a villain. Maybe he realizes this is fake, like Kirk did. Could we bring Shatner back and then Kirk meets the man who killed him?
Ooh, oh man, that would be really cool.
Like, that would be, even if it's like, if he's coming to terms with what he did, it wouldn't have to necessarily be a resurrection, but in the Nexus, like, I mean, there's a lot of possibilities with bringing the Nexus in. And honestly, just random sidebar here, they've talked about doing like almost a True Detective style show where you jump around season to season with new sets of characters. What if you did that, but the Nexus was the common plot thread? So you jump basically 40 years each season.
Ooh, that's really interesting.
I literally just thought about that while we were talking. I'm like, ooh, I kind of like this.
That is really fascinating, because almost that could give an almost Twilight Zone aspect to Star Trek, of this kind of this, I don't want to say entity because it's not really a living entity, but it's like this ability for people to maybe experience their dreams, their nightmares, whatever. And it, like you said, every 40 years. Oh, that's a really juicy idea. And also too, I love the idea of like the Star Trek True Detective, like an anthology series. I think that's a really great way to explore Star Trek, honestly, because, I think we've talked about this before on the podcast, that there's some stories of Star Trek that are not necessarily worthy of a whole series, or maybe even a full movie, but like maybe a season, it would be great, because yeah, I mean, you think about like, man, a True Detective style, yeah, you could have all different eras, you could have all different characters coming back, and yeah, that's a great idea. I really like that.
It's a bunch of period pieces, basically. Okay, so 2371, 2410. If you go back, you're 20, the 2340s. So could you see the Enterprise C and Captain Rachel Garrett before they're destroyed at Narendra 3 and the whole Yesterday's Enterprise thing? You could go back further. Does the Enterprise B encounter them?
And an interesting idea too is that having an anthology series that revolves around the Nexus every season, that could even be a way to almost do that whole in-game style idea of joining up all the captains. That would be a way to actually do it.
Yeah, you could. And then if you're having timeline issues, I was just thinking about this. I'm doing the math in my head. So it passes through the galaxy like every 39.1 years, but it doesn't say how long it takes to come through the galaxy, because if you do the math, it doesn't quite, well, yes, it does. Wait. Yes, 78 years from the end of Generations. Yeah, actually, I sucked at math before. That was my problem. Sorry. But yeah, no, you could do, yeah, it's like you said, and like that could be like your big MacGuffin to bring everybody back together. You could bring, there's just a lot of story possibilities.
There really is. And yeah, and just, I'm honestly kind of surprised that we haven't seen the Nexus pop back up in other in other Star Trek media, just because it's such an interesting concept, and it gives you so many different loopholes to explore, different types of stories.
Oh, I just had another thought. Okay, if you do the timeline, you have 39 years, 40 years, 2293 is when it gets Kirk and the Enterprise B. Technically, okay, he's 40 years. That's the early 23. No, I'm off again. I suck at math tonight. I apologize. I was thinking it could cross over with Strange New Worlds, but I'm off. Unless you did a flashback episode with Captain Pike, and actually that'd be a cool way. Right before Talos 4, like in the cage, you could do a flashback episode. Maybe even First Officer Pike and with Captain April. That actually would be kind of fun.
Oh, that would be interesting, because I really like Captain April, and he hasn't been. Has he been in this season at all? I'm trying to think.
He's been referenced, but yeah, I think he was in the first episode briefly.
Okay.
But only briefly.
Yeah, because I really liked his character, and so that would be fascinating. Like, honestly, and maybe I'm completely wrong because I haven't finished the series yet, but like I'm really kind of surprised the Nexus never showed up in Lower Decks.
That's actually a great point. I mean, I guess maybe the timeline would be off, but like you still would have thought they would have found something, or like maybe the after effect of it.
Uh-huh. Oh, yeah, because like I mean they had so many deep cuts, them prank calling what was it? Was it Aris? I can't remember the villain that
Armus.
Armus, yes. Yes. They had so many deep cuts in there. A Nexus deep cut would have been fun. But yeah, I mean, overall, I'm completely open, to McDowell's return, and I think the Nexus could be a really interesting story device for New Trek to use.
Oh, for sure. It's like you said, it's a great way to unite eras and move people from the past to the future, or vice versa, even.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, because absolutely. I mean, because you think, like I'm just kind of like spitballing, but yeah, it's like you could even have, like you said, you could, if you did it in the future, you could have a beloved character from a past episode, from a past series, show up in this anthology, and it's like, hey, they got caught up in the Nexus and now they're back. It's like,
yeah,
they're it's unlimited. So yeah, that's fascinating. And just I would like to explore the Nexus more as an ecosystem, because we got a little bit of it, obviously in Generations, but like I'm just so interested, like what is it? How does it work? Is there civilizations within the Nexus? Like we don't know.
No, it's great. It's funny that you mentioned it. There was a game. It was a mobile game. I believe it's Star Trek Legends. They ported it to console, and it actually involves like the Nexus returns, I believe, like earlier than it's supposed to, and it ends up being it's created by like, I don't know if civilizations were destroyed, and it was sort of almost a mercy. They put people in there, and then it was also used as a prison, and okay, we put you in prison and you're basically to live out your fantasies, and you're kept away from everyone else, but you also get to live in a euphoria of your own making.
That's an interesting concept, because it's almost like a reverse Phantom Zone almost.
In essence, that's a really good analogy.
That's fascinating. Yeah, I mean, just you mentioning that, I mean, yeah, there's so much to explore, with the Nexus. So yeah, that would be, oh man, because that would be so interesting. Like you said, you put all these people in prison. Well, then, like you said, is there a civilization that builds up then inside? Like this, oh man, there's a lot of story potential there.
Yeah, couldn't agree more.
Man, well, that's fascinating. Well, we will stay up to date on any further news involving Malcolm McDowell's return, and if we hear anything, we'll let you all know on the podcast. And always remember, each episode we're going to have a B plot where we talk about something interesting within Trek. So are you ready, Jordan, to get into the Salot who ate its tail? I know we both have opinions on this episode.
I think I'm ready. I think my tail's been munched on enough. So
All right. Well, do you want to give us a quick overview of this episode, and then we'll dive into the discussion?
I will do my best. So it opens up. We see Lieutenant Commander Kirk on board the Farragut with who's been basically he's recording a log and talking about how bored he is and how Captain Varel, I believe it is, he's a Vulcan captain, is like so risk averse, and they're doing a planetary survey mission, and as they come upon the planet, he's trying to convince his captain to allow an away mission to just go check out the planet, get off the ship, stretch his legs a little bit, and as they're speaking, they detect something, and there's a massive beam, and the planet explodes, causing severe damage to the Farragut. Luckily, they're able to get a distress signal out, and the Enterprise comes to their rescue. And what I can only describe, and Byron and I had a conversation about this, they find a ship which kind of looks like a cross between one of the whale aliens from the first Avengers and Godzilla. Although, first complaint is you barely, if you're going to spend all this money on the CGI to do something that wild, leave it on the screen for more than half a second so my old eyes can see it. Like, we didn't get a particularly great view of it, and it's like, okay, if you're gonna do something that visually, what's the word?
Arresting.
Arresting is a good word. Something that you want to stand out. Let us see it. But anyways, and it goes to warp, and it ends up being the Enterprise engages it because the Farragut's disabled. They send Spock, Chapel, Scotty, and Uhura over to help, with on the Farragut, and the Enterprise engages it, and the ship eats the Enterprise, and then goes to warp. So it leaves Kirk in command of the Farragut with Spock, Scotty, Nurse Chapel, and Uhura, and that's basically your intro. Basically, Kirk has to come to terms with his first command, and we've got the old, is he going to crumble under the pressure? That gets to be, I think some of us would agree, a bit of a tired trope. But there's a lot of pressure, and there's some really great character moments between Kirk and Spock. And meanwhile, the Enterprise is stuck in the belly of the beast, trying to figure, while it drains their power, trying to figure out how to, break free. And for those who have eagle eyes, and I myself missed this, Byron, you'll have to let me know if you caught it. Also in the belly of the beast is a Klingon D7 battle cruiser, and apparently you can see the TARDIS from Doctor Who at one point, which I did not catch.
I did not catch it the first time around, but yes, it is there.
But basically they're having to go, they try to get to engineering because this thing's basically stuck an umbilical cord and is feeding off the Enterprise's energy, and there's these aliens on board that they almost look like the Big Daddies from BioShock.
I thought the exact same thing. I'm glad you brought that up.
Yeah, they're big and lumbering, and they're shooting at them, and basically whatever technology they have, they fire phasers at them, and they basically just absorb the energy and use it to power their suits. And meanwhile, Kirk and Spock and company are able to restore warp drive and get in ahead of this monster ship. And between them slowing them down and Pike and La'an's ingenuity, they're able to they can't even talk on board the Enterprise. So Pelia digs out a bunch of rotary phones from the 80s and earlier in what is, in my opinion, a rather stupid subplot. Though we'll say Pelia was the highlight. Byron and I agree on that. Her one-liners were quite funny, especially the one about her being a roadie for the Grateful Dead, and
yes.
The rest of the crew like, you spoke to the dead. Although you would not have time to wire the ship, and it would be it's. I might be being a Trek no babble Nazi on this one, but it's like it was a bit dumb in my taste. But anyways, they're able to break free. Pike and La'an are able to fight off the remaining aliens, and Kirk is able to destroy the ship. And upon doing so, we find that there are 7,000 life signs aboard. And as the ship begins to break down, it is the basis of the ship, the original portion, is a old Earth ship. It's the XCV-100, which, if you go way back in your Easter eggs, there's a funky looking ship. It's the XCV-330, which was a precursor to Archer's Enterprise. And basically, the whole ship is populated by humans, and Kirk feels horrible because in order to save the Enterprise and the upcoming colony and the Farragut, he just killed 7,000 humans. And, there's a really great scene between Pike and Kirk where Pike gives him some advice, and it ends. So there's your wildly off-topic episode synopsis from me.
Well, I guess, what were your overall feelings on this episode? Because I know that we had kind of had mixed negative feelings on the episodes that had come before the previous two. Did you feel this one was an improvement, or what were your initial thoughts?
I will say this episode it is an overall improvement. There's snippets of a great episode in here. The character in discussions between Kirk and Spock and Kirk and Pike are great. I do think, especially if you're for the rest of the Enterprise crew on the Farragut, you're with a new commanding officer. They're a little too Gen Z goofing off. I'm like, okay, your ship is failing. This is not your captain. Focus.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I've never been one who subscribed to how the MCU got too quippy, but I understood where that was coming from, and I feel like they're almost getting too quippy in Strange New World season 3.
I would agree with you on that. I think the quippiness is starting to bother me a bit, because I felt like with classic Trek, I guess it feels like it doesn't feel like a military / government vessel. Where with classic Trek, you always had to feel like you were on a naval vessel, so to speak.
Yep. You took the words right out of my mouth. There's essence of there's really great, well-written scenes. Like I said, the character interactions are great. I actually thought Paul Wesley shined in this episode. The more we get of him, the more I like him. And I do hope he gets another Star Trek project to work in the future. The whole thing, I was enjoying the episodes. It was a little, what's the word? Laborious to get through. And then the whole reveal of the aliens are actually humans really came out of left field for me. There really wasn't much foreshadowing, and it's and why did they turn evil? And how did this colony of humans who had no contact with Earth in 2 centuries plus, somehow pass the Federation in technology that they basically have a Death Star beam that can destroy a planet? It was a bit far-fetched and not believable, for the established world, I thought. Kirk's reaction to the feeling responsible for the human deaths was, I thought, really in line with his character, and was a nice bit of character building for him. I wanted to love it, and I liked parts of it, if that makes sense.
No, I think that makes total sense, because I felt very similar. I love a good twist, in an episode, and in a movie or a show or anything like that. I'm always a fan of a twist, but I feel like a twist needs to be properly built on so that it pays off. And I feel like maybe if this had been a 2-part episode, that they could have gone with that human twist, because part of the issue for me was that because the Enterprise crew never boarded, the alien vessel, so to speak, we never were able to get any hints of maybe these people aren't exactly who we expected. I almost feel like, they could have gone a full, if they wanted to go almost like BioShock, that it's okay, if they're exploring parts of the alien vessel, and maybe they're seeing, snippets of English, or maybe they find, I don't know, data entries or something like that, where they're showing something with people or something like that. Like, I feel like they could have seeded throughout the episode or episodes that something was off, but because they never left the Enterprise, it just felt weird, to suddenly go that far, I don't know, that far out. And then also too, another thing that kind of bothered me, and like I said, I don't mean to pick too much, at science fiction shows, but like, and maybe my math is just completely off here, but the vessel was supposed to be gone for what, like 200 years, somewhere around there.
Correct.
Yeah, and it's like the vessel only had like what, like 10 people in it, and like I don't know, I thought 7,000 seemed kind of an awful lot. I don't know, maybe I'm completely off, but it seemed like a kind of a large crew, I don't know, for such a small group of humans that set out.
Yeah, they didn't really. I mean, I know that picture they had. There was a decent amount of people, but it wasn't clear if they all launched on it. Even if there was 50 people in, I mean, I guess lost when you're out in space, there's not much else to do,
Right.
other than procreate.
Yeah.
But geez, like that was 7,000 was a bit of a big jump. I don't know. I'd have to. You'd probably have to plug it into a logarithmic or exponential function, and no, we don't want to do that. No one wants to hear us do that, but
Oh yeah.
that's a valid point too.
Yeah. And I felt like, I understood, like you said, the conversation between Pike and Kirk was really good, of him coming to terms with his responsibility and what he had to do and everything. I kind of feel, and I guess I kind of feel like that scene would have worked just as well if these had just been aliens, versus humans. Like, I don't think it had to be humans for that weight to still be on Kirk, because, in some ways, and it almost felt, and I don't want to use a loaded term here, but I feel like Star Trek, classic Star Trek, but especially new Star Trek, has really put an emphasis on how all life is valuable, and they've, like, and, that, it doesn't matter, who you are, it doesn't matter what type of life form you are, like it deserves to be protected and, cultivated, etc. And so, like, I don't know, part of me felt like them making it humans in order to have Kirk feel almost felt like this kind of weird step back for Kirk, that it just, I mean, not for Kirk, for Star Trek, because it felt like, Star Trek, that they could have had it be like, hey, these lives were all valuable, 7,000 of them, even if it's an alien race, whatever. I don't know. That was just kind of my thought. What do you think?
I hadn't considered that, but that's a really good point. Like, it's almost, I guess, I feel like with most of the season, they because of those strikes, they overthought everything. They had too much time on their hands, and they're like, I don't know if they thought it would make it more hit home more that it had to be human lives versus aliens, but like the Kirk we all knew and grew up with, like 7,000 lives, whether they were Klingon, Romulan, Organian, human, whatever, he would have felt that either way. And I think you're spot on in your analysis on that.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, it's just, it's interesting. And I think the episode would have been cleaner, I think, if it had been aliens, just because it would have been one less, just one less hurdle, to jump through of like you said, kind of, trying to figure out like the technology, because honestly, if it was a unknown alien race, then that would, maybe you could kind of hand wave away how they had this technology, they could, if they had described them, oh, this is an ancient race, not on any, not on any star maps or something like that.
Yeah, it could have been a new recurring villain too.
Oh, exactly. Yes. Absolutely. And, or, you'll appreciate this semi joke, but, or it could have even been oh man, my brain is just not working today. What were the villains that have always been referenced in Star Trek, and they were the villains in Star Trek Online? Oh,
You talk about the Iconians.
The Iconians, yes. We could have had it be been an Iconian ship, you know? It's like, and for those who are listening who may not quite understand that, basically any unknown ship or unknown race that is announced in any show or any movie, a lot of Star Trek fans are always like, is it Iconian?
Yeah, it's like, yeah, because like, is this the ship that plants the Iconian gateways across the
Mhm.
galaxy? So I don't know. They
Mhm.
could have they could have done so many other things. There's so many other species, and like it was just weird because it felt like they added that whole twist in last minute, and it was like, oh,
Mhm.
okay.
Absolutely. And it makes the galaxy just feel small, you know?
Yeah, it does. And I mean,
Mhm.
how did they develop warp drive on their own? Did
Oh,
they steal it from somebody? Like,
that's a really good question. Yeah. I guess maybe, yeah, maybe they stole it because they were kind of showing them as scavengers, I guess, that were like taking things. Um, yeah, yeah, that's true. Yeah, because they didn't really say. Yeah, unless it was they stole it. But then that kind of, you know, uh parlays the question like, okay, if they were how were they strong enough to take out a warp, civilization ship in order to steal it? It's like
also valid point.
yeah, there's just a whole bunch of issues that arise by making them humans in this. And yeah, it's just an issue. And I think it kind of just goes back to something that we've always brought up, that the runtimes seem to be an issue this season, and I feel like we never had an issue with runtimes in the previous two seasons.
Completely agree. Like
Mhm.
every episode this season should have either been like a 2 or 3 parter, or even another 10 or 20 minutes, just
Mhm.
a little bit more exposition and a little bit more time to resolve everything.
Mhm. Absolutely. And honestly, like I wouldn't have minded if they would have announced, hey, season 3 is gonna be 5 stories that are 2 parts, each. Like honestly, I would have been down for that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Mhm. You know, um, it is interesting going back to the TARDIS from Doctor Who showing up. There is a funny line that this kind of pays off a little bit, which I think was kind of fun. In it was in one of the previous seasons of Doctor Who. I think it was either, I don't remember if it was the first or second season of the reboot, with the new actor, uh, and that his companion makes some type of reference to Star Trek, where she says something like, "Oh, it's just like Star Trek," or "Oh, is this like Star Trek," or whatever. And he looks at her, and he's like, "Oh man, we're gonna have to visit them someday." And so this was kind of a fun little payoff, I think, to that little line.
That is funny. It's because there was a comic when Matt Smith was the Doctor where they did cross over and meet. Picard meant Matt Smith's Doctor, and I haven't watched the video, but there's been some speculation on, are they going to try to set up a Doctor Who Trek crossover? I'd watch it. I mean, you basically got your two oldest sci-fi franchises in existence. Like, why not?
Yeah. I mean, honestly, why I am of the same mindset that it's like I would not mind that, even in whether it's in another show or in Strange New Worlds. I feel like it would fit with Strange New Worlds really well
I
with
do
like,
too.
but yeah, even another show, like I think it would be really interesting because Doctor Who, it can do Doctor Who has done serious very well, horror, serious comedy, they do everything. And yeah, that would be a really interesting crossover. And and honestly, the worlds fit together so well, because we've seen the Doctor goes from, has been in every timeline, every every year in existence. So yeah, I say bring it on. I would absolutely watch it.
Oh, me too. That
Uh-huh.
actually would make for a nice, like, I don't know if we'll get streaming movies because that doesn't seem to be a priority, but that would be, or like a mini series, a type of event. Like, don't one episode, like build it up a little bit more than that.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. And I think having it maybe be like you said, like maybe a 3 or 4 episode mini series, I think would go really well. Or like you said, a streaming film. It would definitely boost Star Trek. It would boost Doctor Who as well. I just think there's really there's no way to lose. with it, honestly, because you get the fandoms of both sides kind of crossing over to watch it. And I've been a Doctor Who fan for, probably at least, I think I started watching it in, man, was it 2008 or so? So I've been watching it a long time. So I would be very down for that.
Yeah, I've never been the biggest Whovian myself. Not that I disliked it. I remember when Christopher Eccleston came back in '05, and I do remember watching the '96 TV movie that was supposed to be a pilot with Eric Roberts was the master.
Yes. Uh-huh.
Like it's one of those things. Like I'm watching this, I'm like, why do I know this? I'm like, wait, I watched this like at the time it was like a decade ago. This movie, it was on in like the summer. It was supposed to be a new show, and nothing came of it. Now my parents and grandparents, huge Doctor Who fans. My uncle's like the ultimate Whovian. So,
have you seen any of David Tennant's seasons?
a bit, not a ton. I do think it's funny because it's the Doctor's daughter. Because it's funny. David Tennant's actual real life wife is Peter Davison's daughter. So, what is it?
Wow.
The 10th Doctor is married to the daughter of the 5th Doctor.
Wow, that is wild.
Yeah, there's your fun fact today. And I think his wife plays the Doctor's daughter in an episode during Tennant's tenure.
Wow, talk about Inception.
Yeah, for real.
Oh, well, if you're ever interested, and you don't want to do a full dive, into the whole reboot, because I understand it's quite laborious of how long. I am more than happy to give you a list of like essential episodes that are interesting to see from a couple of the Doctors that would be enjoyable.
I'm sure the Weeping Angels will be in there somewhere.
Oh, the Weeping Angels absolutely would be in there. Probably the episode with the iconic Fury of the Time Lord monologue would be in there. That was a fantastic. It's like about a 2 or 3 minute monologue, and it's I won't spoil it in case you ever see it, but basically it showcases. The Doctor's always been kind of viewed as this happy-go-lucky type guy, and this one episode when he's fighting these really evil aliens, basically, it shows at the end that he just goes off on them, basically, and it's like you see this intense, dark version of the Doctor that is like terrifying, basically. And they give a line of this one villain. He gives the line where he says, he says, we've always asked why the Doctor, who had fought, gods and demons, why he had hidden himself from us. And he's like, and now we realize he was being kind.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And it just kind of showcases of just this brutal, like executioner version of the Doctor that is really interesting. So, but yeah, maybe who knows, maybe at some point in the future of Tachyon Transmissions, maybe we'll do some watch throughs of a few episodes of Doctor Who, maybe in the future.
Ooh, I like that idea.
That would be a lot of fun. So, well, I guess was there anything in this particular episode of Strange New Worlds that really stood out to you? I know we've mentioned a couple of things, but like, was there one particular moment that you would say that you really liked, that you felt like, oh, this was really good?
Pike and Kirk talking at the end, that was really good, about the responsibilities of command. That probably was the high point of the episode, just from like a dialogue and a writing perspective, and just like even a character moments between the two of them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would agree. I really liked that moment. I also really liked the moment of Spock when he goes in to reassure Kirk.
Yes.
That was like you said, it's a bit of a trope, that's kind of been done a lot, especially in science fiction. But I excused it a little bit just because I really enjoyed seeing kind of the start of this relationship of Kirk and Spock, this epic friendship, that we've seen, that they're kind of seeing, the first kind of seed of some of that was really great, because, you see when Spock is older, and, some of the films when he calls, Kirk his great friend, that, just seeing the birth of that, I really enjoyed.
Oh yeah, no, that was going to be my. If I had a second choice, that would have been
Uh-huh.
it.
Uh-huh. No, absolutely. Lastly, I have to say, what did you think of the design of the ship? Because I know we briefly brought that up in the beginning. Was it something that you liked, didn't like? How did you feel about that?
I found it actually really interesting. It wasn't that I didn't like it. Other than say Picard season 3, I've had a real issue. Modern Trek, they never show the ship. I
Mhm.
just want to see that. What they forget is the ship is a character too.
Mhm.
Like, and it's gotten better with Strange New World and some of the recent series. But like, we never got any exterior ship shots. Like, I want to see the flyby shots. I want to see them going to warp. And it's like, you have this really wild design that's not like anything else in Star Trek, and it's like, it's massive, and you don't really get to see the minute and exquisite details of it because it doesn't zoom in, it doesn't pan over it, it doesn't give you. And I understand it's expensive, but like, it was such a quick glimpse. I'll be honest, I didn't even know what I was looking at till like I rewound it like twice. You know?
Mhm. No, I completely agree because it is true. Like the ship is a character. I mean, and we never more have we seen that than in Star Trek the Motion Picture, where what is it, like a 10-minute, panning shot of the Enterprise,
That's my favorite part of the movie too.
Oh,
So that might
it
be
is.
my problem.
Oh, but I remember that moment is gorgeous. I mean, it's so beautiful because you're welcoming back a character that's been gone for a long time, and you're just seeing all of the beautiful, details of it. And it was awesome. And it sets it apart from a lot of other franchises. So I completely agree with you. Like, I want to see the ships because especially now that we have CGI and we have all this stuff, there's kind of a bit more of an opportunity to have more wild designs, have more creativity just because they're not limited by what they can build with a model or whatever. So yeah, I agree. Like, show us, let us see it.
Yeah, absolutely. Couldn't agree
Mhm.
more.
Yeah. All right. Well, we are now at the portion of the episode where we are going to rate this episode on a scale of 1 to 10 stars. So, Jordan, what star ranking would you give this episode?
Oh, that's tough.
Mhm.
Um, I think Paul Wesley's performance and those couple character moments we mentioned bring it, or what saves it. The human plot twist out of left field really tanked it for me. I would say maybe a 6.5. We'll split the difference. We'll do 6.25.
That sounds good. I would say, kind of looking at it, because I agree with you. Like, it was kind of an episode that started out really strong. I was enjoying the storyline. I thought, ooh, this like phantom ghost ship, almost like a Davy Jones type thing was really
Yeah.
exciting. I was like, oh man, this reminds me of Pirates of the Caribbean. I love this. Like you said, the twist at the end, yeah, brought it down. I would say I think I'm going to go 6.5, so 6.5, because Paul Wesley really did shine as Kirk. I mean, he really did embody him. Like, I really loved his log in the beginning because it felt very Kirk like.
Oh,
Um,
absolutely.
you know, um, so yeah, I'd say 6.5, I think, just because he and Spock and Pike in those moments did elevate it enough that the episode was not a complete loss.
Agreed. And I like your Pirates of the Caribbean analogy because
Mhm.
the way the ship looks, it's almost like, one of those old sea leviathans you'd hear stories about. It's just a space leviathan.
Yeah, uh-huh, exactly. Yeah, and exactly. And that's why like I said, the more I think about it, the more I wish the human element wasn't there, because this, I think, a little bit, if it was written a little bit tighter, maybe, another 10 minutes added on, with maybe a different alien race, being the ship. I think this could have been a very iconic episode for Strange New Worlds.
Yeah, agreed.
Mhm. So, man, well, everybody, thank you for joining us for this review and discussion of this episode of Strange New Worlds. I hope you enjoyed it. As always on social media, let us know what you thought of the episode. If you liked it, if you disliked it, if you loved it, if you hated it. And be sure to join us for our next episode that is going to be coming up, where we're going to be discussing the next episode in the series of Strange New Worlds. So make sure you like and subscribe so you don't miss, any episode that drops. Because even though we are starting to approach the end of Strange New Worlds season 3, the podcast is not going to be ending. We are going to be continuing to do Star Trek content and news. And theories, as well as, as we mentioned this episode, maybe diving into a couple of other sci-fi IPs, and doing some discussions and fun talks about that. So there's always going to be something for you to listen to, and we hope that you will continue to join us on our own journey into the strange new world of podcasting. So I'm really sorry for everyone who had to listen to that really cheesy send-off, but I'm not gonna fully apologize for it. All right, all. Thanks again, and we will see you next week.